That's right, folks. It's another edition of the radio show with Marc Lee, right here on IBMTV.tv. And of course, we are always glad to have some amazing guests. And definitely today is no different. We're going to have some amazing guests and some great conversation and all of that. I know a lot of folks are still pumped up because of the Super Bowl, particularly if you are a Tom Brady fan and all of that. I am not necessarily a Tom Brady fan, was actually rooting for Kansas City, but they just got dogged in that game. It wasn't even close in the least bit. So, like I said, Tom Brady won that seventh championship of his and has said that he will definitely be back next year as well. And I heard their coach say that he wants to try to repeat. And I know that that's what Kansas City wanted to do this year. So we'll see whether that happens or not. I know that both of my teams have not been doing well for several years, being a diehard Minnesota Vikings fan and also being from Carolina, being a Panthers fan, and know that neither of those teams have been doing all that much this season at all. And then I was glad to see North Carolina mentioned on a couple of things that I saw going on this weekend and all. I was watching my alma mater, Marquette, take an L, definitely losing the game to Creighton. But during the game, they mentioned the secret game, which is a game between some Duke medical folks and a team of athletes from North Carolina Central University that was held way before the civil rights era and all of that. So that has been made into a movie and a number of other things. So they were actually mentioning the secret game. They also talked about the gentleman that the Coliseum over there at Central is named after, that being John McClendon. So they talked about that and his coaching legacy and a number of other things. He actually worked with Naismith, one of the founders of basketball and all of that. So definitely it was good seeing that mentioned. And then later on, I saw that Sri Srinivasan, a good friend of mine, was talking on his Sunday New York Times read-along about a number of things. He was talking to a person that used to work for the New York Times on their sports department and all of that. But then at some point, they were talking about Soul City. And Soul City was an attempt to have an African-American city in the North Carolina area. So I was very much familiar with that. I remember when Floyd McKissick was trying to get Soul City off the ground. It never truly got off the ground at all, even though it's now more of a community than anything else. But definitely, I remember when he was trying to get that going off the ground, and actually my folks were starting their community radio station at around that same time. So definitely that's some of the things that are going on in the world. And of course, folks are paying attention to what is happening with the vaccine, as well as how they're doing in terms of distributing it. I know that definitely Biden was saying that he did not know that things were as bad under the Trump administration as had been of, and they actually found it to be worse and all of that. So that's some of the things that I saw, was that he found the situation to be worse, but he is trying to correct that situation and try to make sure that those that are going to get the vaccine will get the vaccine. As a matter of fact, he said in Business Insider that Trump's handling of COVID-19 was even more dire than we thought, after finding insufficient vaccine supplies. So that's one of the things that he said about the last administration. And of course, he's also doing some other things that are going against what the last administration did as well. Biden's administration reportedly is preparing new rules limiting ICE arrests and deportations. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers will reportedly be given new guidance that will lead to fewer arrests and deportations. The Washington Post has reported that the policy change would mean ICE agents will no longer seek deportations for immigrants convicted of drunk driving and assault. So that's just some of the things that are going on in the world. We do know that there are a number of folks that are also paying attention to the confirmations of the different folks for the cabinet and all of that. And of course, a number of things are happening in our world. But I wanted to get to our guests and have a great conversation with them about a number of things. We might even find out if they had a Super Bowl commercial that they liked more than others. Because as I said, the game was out of hand very early. So I did pay attention to the commercials and also paid attention to the halftime show. So we're going to find out from our guests if they were paying attention to any of those things as well. So the first gentleman I'm going to bring up is none other than Charlie Brady. And I learned about Charlie Brady because he is starting a theater guild here in North Carolina and all of that. So definitely glad that you were able to join me, Charlie. Don't know if you were watching that game, if you had a dog in that fight, if you were a Brady fan or anything along those lines, or if you even had a Super Bowl party at your house or in your residence or anything along those lines. But definitely I am interested in learning more about your theater and what you're doing theatrically and all of that.
And all of that. Just all of that. How about that game? I mean, sports it was weird for sports in general this year, right? Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I'm a diehard football fan, and I did not watch football this year.
Well,
it's hard to connect to it. There's lots going on otherwise, obviously, and that it just was a weird year for sports. My wife and I, we go to Duke basketball every year. We have season tickets. That's been weird. I haven't even watched the games that have been televised. It's just been that year, right? Like everything, nothing was normal. And sports was one of those things that I just couldn't quite get into it. I will say, I connect with you on the feeling of your team not doing very well for a very long time. I grew up a San Diego Chargers fan.
Okay.
And so that's been a lifelong, battle. They had a couple good moments in the early 2000s, but I know the feeling. But that was such a switch this year. Phil Rivers and everything, he retired, and it was such a chapter shift that it doesn't quite. And they're in LA now, obviously, so It was kind of like a paradigm shift that I'm still kind of like trying to find my way back into it a little bit. Yeah. So that probably had a little something to do with it as well, But I did watch Super Bowl, and Tom Brady is always the guy that you want to hate him, don't you?
Exactly.
I mean, he's so darn good. You just want to hate him. You want to find something wrong with the guy. You can't say anything though anymore.
You can't say anything. He just manages to win handily. There's not much you can say about him. And like I said, you can love to hate him. And I definitely am one of those folks that love to hate him. I actually have a good friend of mine that was teasing me because they was telling me they grew up around New York and all of that. And they were telling me that, definitely you cannot root for Brady or anything that was like Boston related or anything of that nature and everything. I did have him as my fantasy quarterback. Didn't do me any good. I did win my fantasy championship because he had a couple of bad games and some other folks won that championship, but I did have him as my fantasy quarterback. And I know my good friend Zach was telling me that he didn't even want to hear that I had him on the team, much less that he was my quarterback and everything. So he gave me a hard time about that. Yeah. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was definitely how did you get into theater? Is theater something that you've always been interested in? And also, how are you even coping and trying to start a guild in the middle of a pandemic? We're in the middle of a pandemic and you're starting a theater guild.
I know. It's ridiculous. The more ridiculous thing is that I literally started this a year ago. And it was even less applicable then. And it was like a month. I mean, the whole thing has just been a roller coaster. You know what I mean? The whole planning of it. A little bit about my background. Yes, my whole life I've been in the arts. I'm from California. I was professionally acting on a kids TV show when I was 13 years old. So I've just always been doing it. Went to college at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh for musical theater as an actor, and spent my career as an actor. Moved to New York and spent about 17 years in New York. As an actor, I've worked I was in Broadway, and I've worked national tours, off Broadway, regional theater, small market regional theaters. Really an actor's career really can run the gamut of the types of experiences you have. Right. I met my wife about 8 years ago now, and she was also a New York actress. But she is from here. She's from Raleigh originally and runs a theater company here called Theater Raleigh.
Okay.
And so, as life went on, I hit 40, the acting career thing, it was like the amount of the consistency of opportunity is obviously crazy. And having her resource this theater company, trying new things, learning new skills, doing things I don't normally get to do, directing, all the different avenues. really was that moment where it was expanding my existence, compared to what I had been doing the last 20 years, basically. And, it's just time. It was kind of, the option was there. The decision-making process was like pretty clear. Ultimately, our relationship, we're married now, and our relationship was obviously going. It's so funny. I remind her all the time, like when we first started dating, I was like, I'm not moving to North Carolina. Like, that's just out of the cards. I mean, no way. But I mean, I'm so happy. All of this has led me to starting the Theater Guild, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But so I mean, my experience as an actor, working around the country in lots of different kind of environments, and so I've experienced a lot of different markets. Right, coming down here and experiencing this market was an interesting experience. And as I've gotten to know, I've been in Raleigh about 8 years now. And there's so much creativity and passion and ingenuity around here, and movements within the arts that are important. Right. A lot of social justice awareness going on, obviously, right now, and those stories being told through art, which is one of the best places that can make that conversation be equal, right? A give and take. And so, but to me, in my experience, kind of as an outsider coming in, this is not a blanket statement, but the awareness of what is going on here didn't seem like it got much past the borders of the triangle, really. Right. Bits and pieces here and there. We got a couple people in the area and whatnot that have gone on to do things that people claim, and some of the accomplishments of theaters get talked about here and there. But for the most part, it's just not in that conversation of those big theater hub cities. But what is actually going on here does not seem like that. It does not reflect that. So for years, while I've been here, I've just been trying to find the holes or the ways in which I could contribute and what I could contribute to help that. I want to, my interest is to make this triangle theater industry in that national conversation and be recognized for what it is accomplishing, because it is accomplishing so much. So my whole mission is an award. A lot of these big market cities all have this thing in common, and it's an awards program. Now, awards programs are very polarizing. Right. People love them or hate them. Right. A lot of people have different opinions about them, and it can be tricky. It can be tricky. It can very easily get into just bad competition, right? And just maybe bring up some resentment. I believe that there is a way to create an atmosphere that is celebratory. Mm-hmm. And, I intend, for a ceremony like this, I love the idea of seeing these acts that we all saw each other's shows throughout the year, right, and creating an environment that you get to see that in that one number that touched you, in that theater that night that you were watching it, and recreate that moment. And it would have a collective feeling of celebration and be like, yeah, that was great. And we should, those are the kinds of accomplishments that we want to keep aspiring to and keep putting out there, and just keep that going and keep that relevance going. There's so much creativity around here that I feel like I don't see it reflected a lot in the mainstream a lot of the times. And at least in my experience and things that I've, the different, theaters that I've worked at and whatnot, not in the same way. There's a real nuance to it out here. I went to work last year at the beginning of the year trying to develop an awards program with the intent of it being adjudicated by a pool of 21 judges that are within our community. So it would really reflect what the community impact was. So that idea of not agreeing with each other or something would really be at a minimum, Then,
does it actually surprise you? Just really quickly, like I said, I don't know, you're very fascinating. I definitely want to bring in some of our other guests as well. But does it surprise you that we don't have that? Because as you were saying all of that, and definitely having traveled around, been in Hollywood, been in New York, and things of that nature, I'm thinking about the fact that I've actually interviewed on one of our shows here, Ira David Woods. And of course, everybody knows him as being definitely one of the, you know, leaders in our theatrical community and things of that nature. And of course, there's folks like Ed Hunt that had Man Bites Dog, but unfortunately, Man Bites Dog is now no longer around and things of that nature. I think Vernon Cole is no longer around either,
No,
but
Vernon
there were
Cole
definitely some. Oh no, the Vernon Cole is still here. That's right. Vernon Cole is here, but
they've actually been very fascinating through the COVID period. Like they are one of the ones who I feel really, really churned the creativity out, given what our circumstances were. You know,
right.
They're doing great stuff over there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've done some good stuff.
Man Bites Dog, I know, and that's the thing. It's like everybody loved that place, but it had to close. Like that's too bad, you know, because it's. You know, this place is supposed to be like such an arts town, right? But like it is, there are challenges for that to sustain. And so that is what the ultimate mission for what I'm talking about is like, I want to broadcast to the rest of the country that this is a place, whether you're here or you're not here, you know, arts, careers, and lives take you all over the place, right? I never thought I'd be in North Carolina. You know what I mean? And here I am. I want this place to be in that conversation to where it will bring more resources to us, and people will be like, I want to start a theater company in the Triangle in North Carolina, you know, and we will get more and more support. You know, this place is booming in a lot of different ways, in real estate, in you know, businesses and Research Triangle Park and all that. Like we should be part of that, you know?
Yeah, we should definitely be part of that. But I know one of the things that I know folks always have to fight against, and I guess I want to, like I said, I'm going to bring in a couple of our other guests as well.
Yeah.
It's also the thing that we have to fight against, kind of the concept of we oftentimes don't support our folks in the arts enough financially. I know that Monica Burns was leading a movement to try to have folks go in front of the Durham City Council and even have our artists get some sort of money compensation and everything. Because a lot of times she's a well-known author here in the area, but she was not feeling that we were getting the kind of support that we needed. And I'm sure that that's even kind of what Ed at Man Bites Dog and the folks at Common Ground and some of the others have also felt as well. So I was just wondering, is that a concern of yours as you're trying to create this? Because I even know that my friend Sherry Holmes does something similar to what you're talking about, where she does like a showcase of a lot of the Black theater pieces that are out there. She does that about once a year or something like that. I don't think that she's done it recently, or like this year because of COVID, but she's done them in the past. And it's like a highlight of the different pieces that are focusing on Black theater and things along that line. But I know she's done it for several years, but I don't know that she even gets the support that she should get. And even I've known for years the young lady that does Sips and Scripts over there in Raleigh, and I don't know that she necessarily gets enough support in what she does and all of that. So I just wondering if you think that even our local folks are not getting the kind of support that they should be getting.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, that is kind of, I will say that the arts in general, right, it always kind of feels like we're not getting enough, you know. I mean, that is, I mean, I can say for my whole life, it's just any especially regional theater. I mean, Broadway and all that corporate stuff is a different thing, but the regional theater scene, yes, I mean, there's a handful of places that have really nailed it, you know. And I will say though that this year specifically, I will say that the support for the arts, given the circumstances, far exceeded what my expectations would have been.
Right.
You know, the councils, United Arts Council and all them, they've been super helpful for a lot of theaters in the area that I know. Of course, it's not everybody, right? I mean, there's always more to be had, of course. But I will say I have seen, and even just in the community, I have seen people really, really do what they can, you know, to support and try to keep us going. You know, everybody's gone to virtual programming, right? And we're all using that for chances to be like, please help, whatever you can do, $5, $10, $20. And that, in my experience and my awareness, has actually really been more present and more helpful than I would have anticipated, given, you know, what the economic situations have been. But yes, it's true. I mean, there does need to be more.
It definitely needs to be more. And speaking of entrepreneurs that are doing great work and all of that, I did want to bring in an entrepreneur from the California area and all of that in the West Coast. But how are you even coping with this, Dr. Muller? Because like I said, you've got your whole business around being a mom entrepreneur. You're a mom and an entrepreneur and a wife and a number of other things that you've got going on. And this is a difficult era to even be trying to launch a business, but you've got your business running and doing a lot of supporting of other mom entrepreneurs. So how are you even coping with that? And how are you even able to get this going during this COVID age that we live in?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on the show, Mark. And hi, Charlie.
Hi, nice to see you.
You as well. Nice to meet you. And I love what you were sharing about the importance of the arts. I think, like you said, right, it's never enough. And usually one of the first things that like gets chopped. I'm really pleased to hear, though, that you've seen more support happening than expected this year. And speaking of support, to answer your question, Mark, I think, I have found personally that it is a pretty overwhelming time for a lot of moms, whether they run businesses or whether they're professional moms or stay-at-home moms. There's so much on the plate, and particularly now with the online school and a lot of people homeschooling, in addition to doing all of their usual work, and spouses losing their employment and all of those things. So I find that right now in particular it's even more important to have that network of support. And that's something that I always invite women to surround themselves with other women that understand what they're going through and that can lend support. And I find also that right now, a lot of women in particular, since those are my people, that, that need for connection is so palpable, and people are really, just craving that and looking for it. And so I try to, reach out to people individually and do a lot of sharing inside my group as well, and create a sense of community. And in particular for moms in business, right? There's been some scary times for some people. Other people have actually experienced an explosion in their own businesses. It all depends on, what kind of business. And also a lot of it is, how are they approaching the whole situation?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one thing I was going to ask you is, when I was talking to Charlie was talking about the fact that he was basically involved in this acting career since he was a youngster. He was actually like a child actor and things of that nature. Would you say the same thing with you and entrepreneurship? Were you an entrepreneur at a young age? Were you that kid that had the lemonade stand? Or is this something that came to your life later in life?
I was not an entrepreneurial kid whatsoever. In fact, so I have a PhD in family psychology. And so my path was, all right, I'm going to go to school. I was always encouraged to go as far as I could in my schooling and, just have a career helping people. So in my head, I was going to teach and supervise and do clinical work and publish and all of the things. And little that I know, my path would be so different at this juncture. I just found that, how this all got started is because I was doing the working mom, professional working mom balancing act. I was not feeling particularly good about the way that it was all going, working long hours and rushing around a lot and all the things, right? And then I had a chance to go part-time. And so what that opened up is the opportunity for me to take a step back from all the crazy, participate more in the kids' school and get involved in like the PTA and things like this, have more breathing room for myself. I became like a better person. And I thought, you know what, I'm loving this. And there's still that nudge, to go do something more. So that's what led me to, I can start my own business. I don't know the first thing about running a business, but I can learn. And I remember I was participating in a networking group where they were reading a book called 1 Minute Millionaire. Mm. And I read that book and I was like, you know what? Why not me? Why couldn't I do that? Because the whole premise of the book is millionaires are not like special or whatever. It's just, they do things in a certain way. They think in a certain way. It's like, you know what? I can do this. I'm going to throw myself in this thing. I'm going to do my business. I'm going to make it happen. So that's what that means.
It sounds like you've done a great job with that. And one of the things that both of you have said that I found really interesting, being the right now the single man in the room and everything, is that both of you are very much engaged in having the support of your other half and everything. You actually mentioned that earlier, Charlie, the fact that your wife is very much engaged in the whole creation of the Theater Guild and how much you support her. And I do know from a previous conversation that I had with Dr. Raquel, kind of a pre-interview and everything, that she was talking about the support that she gets from her husband, who she met on the college campus as she had moved here from Panama and all of that. So I'd love to hear both of you talk about the importance of having that supportive other half.
Charlie, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. By the way, my dog is barking in the background, so apologies. Just
I don't hear
home conferencing. Well, let me make one edit to what you just said. My wife is not actually a part of the Tobacco Leaf Theater Guild. This is like my own venture. That being said, nothing is totally separate, right? She runs her own theater company in the area. And so I will say that honestly, she was the one that inspired me to take this kind of leap. I had a very similar moment as you did. I had that why not me moment. I had been doing one thing for a long time. I don't know anything about business. I've watched her run a theater company. And over, the 8 years that we've been together, I've, picked up some routines here and there, how you're getting money, who you're asking, and the importance of community buy-in and connection, and how to accomplish that. But she certainly makes a lot of canvas for me when I put on Instagram, my Instagram marketing, because she's already a pro at that. I'm like this morning I did one that takes her 10 minutes. I'm like, I don't know, I cannot figure this out. And she's like, boop, 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 boop. So that's all her. And she has certainly been helpful in helping me promote, because it really is a tool for the theaters themselves and for artists. And she's one of those. And it really is, it's really helpful to have that common interest, that common language. We both know the industry like the back of our hands. We don't have that okay, what did you do? Oh, what did you do? And then we're like, okay, cool. And you're just kind of listening, but you don't really know what it feels like. That's really nice to have as you go through these together, these ups and downs, you know what I mean? And the challenges that come up, you can really bounce things off of each other and keep the lid on everything a bit.
Yeah. What about your experience with that, Dr. Muller?
Yeah. So, my husband has been, just wonderful. And, here's something that I was thinking about as I was listening to Charlie, is, like you said, right, having kind of you didn't use this term, but, sounding board, right? This is what's happening. This is what I'm going through. And my husband has, right. And he in the past had his own business. So he knows something about the entrepreneurial journey. And so he's, shared some of his insights with me. And, and yet there are so many things where we are different. So for example, one of the things that I often will talk about and I will share with my ladies is that, allow your partner to support you in the way that he or she can support you, but don't expect them to support you in other ways. So for example, the whole idea of me investing in coaching for myself, right? To him, that's a foreign, what? You're spending how much on that? And so I don't expect for him to understand that, but I love him for being so respectful of me making decisions that I know are good for me and for my personal development and for my business. Because ultimately, I am my product, right? I mean, the service that I provide is all me, right? So if I am not in the best mental, emotional, spiritual shape that I can to serve my people, it's not going to work. And so, so I talk a lot about the idea of finding various kinds of support from various people in your life. And so it's really good to have kind of a richness of different kinds of support, because there are just things that as a man, he's not going to get too, right? So that's what I want to say about support.
Yep, that support is very important. Speaking of support, I was going to bring in our other guest today, which is Chucky Currie, and Chucky is actually involved in the field of martial arts, and he's actually over there in the West Coast as well. So, Chucky, share a little bit about yourself, your martial arts background, and all of that. I know when I was reading up on you and everything, they were even saying that if Bruce Lee was alive, he would be taking you on trips with him and things of that nature because of some of the things that you have accomplished in the martial arts field, and are actually still working in that field and even doing some stunt work in that field as well. So share a little bit about yourself with everybody else.
Well, I've been in martial arts for over 50 years. I am a world champion martial artist in forms fighting and weapons. I was the first to do martial arts with music on television. I had met up with Prince, and I used his song Dirty Mind on television before they would even play his music. And I became the #1 martial arts performer in the United States. And what you were saying about Bruce Lee taking me on tour, one of Bruce Lee's top students and best friends is Danny Asano. So I met Danny Asano at one of my performances, and he told me if Bruce was alive, he would take me on tour everywhere. As a kid, I did meet Bruce, but I was very young. I was only like 11 years old. And he was signing autographs at a special premiere. And I thought that was really great, but it didn't hit me who he was. As time went on, I ended up meeting Brandon Lee, Shannon Lee, Linda Lee, the whole Lee family. So Chuck Norris named me the new Bruce Lee. I had worked in some different movies. I know Jackie Chan's manager, and he took a liking to me, and he put me in his magazines. I ended up coming out in all the top martial arts magazines. But I just kept thriving to make my own movie. I didn't want to be like just some stunt man getting thrown around and kicked around and slapped around. Because, as a champion, that's not going to happen to me. When I fight, I expect to win. I had to go 100%. I was hearing somebody say, I guess Michael Jai White had said, you look at his shoulder and then that's when you can tell when he's going to move. I'm like this, the best offense is a good defense and vice versa. So I'm not going to sit there and try to figure out what this guy is going to do. You got to sometimes just shoot in and make your move. I do the same way with business. Like, I really wanted to make this movie. So I worked in Ocean's 11, Rush Hour 2, The Hulk, Twisted, XXX State of the Union. So while I was on the set, I was meeting these different directors and different producers, and I was seeing front of the camera and behind the scenes. So I just said, hey, I got to find me somebody who's going to work with me now. So I found this director named Giovanni Taglia and another director named Philip Safarik. And I know my little brother Reggie is a really good dancer. So I put them all together and brought them here to San Diego. And we made this little short movie, Enter the Tiger. And we won the Action on Film Festival in Las Vegas. And it hit up and it went everywhere. I ended up meeting Reginald Hudlin, he's an executive on BET. And he told me, everybody's seen Enter the Tiger. And I was like, what? No, I ain't talking about Enter the Dragon. I'm talking about Enter the Tiger. He goes, no, everybody's seen Enter the Tiger, man. And I was like, oh, man. I said, well, I want to make a full feature. Why don't you help me? I'll just cut straight through the path. And he goes, why don't you help you? I was like, okay, here we go. So I just said this, I ain't going to let nothing or nobody stop me. Like Bruce Lee used to say, be like water, create your own way, make a way. You don't got to wait for somebody else. You just got to pray and fast and take care of business and stay focused. There'll be a whole lot of other things on the side trying to take your mind here, take your mind there. But I believe staying focused and don't, like I said, when I met Prince, for instance, Prince told me, I ain't letting nobody stop me. And you could do whatever you want to do. Just do it. And I was like, he asked me to go on tour the first day, but I was kind of scared because sometimes, the fear set in. And I was like, well, I got about 70 students. I can't just leave my students and go on tour with you. He goes, why not? They will leave you. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I still can't just leave them. And then I met Michael Jackson. I was outside Michael Jackson's house. I was doing kicks and jumping around, doing spinning kicks. And the car stopped, the limousine, and the glove came out. And I was like, the glove, Michael Jackson, oh, my God. And then he got out the car and he came over to talk to me. And he said, where'd you learn that from? And you're so good. I go, Michael, you're bad. He goes, no, you're bad. I go, no, Michael, you're bad. He goes, no, you're bad. I was like, listen. Talking to Michael, to me, that was like one of the best things. And he said, you have what it takes to be a megastar. Just don't let nobody or nothing stop you. And After that, I met Richard Pryor, and I'm going to cut it quick because I know how things is online. Anyway, I met Richard Pryor, and Richard Pryor said, hey, man, I can make you a millionaire right now, but it could destroy you because you get 1 million friends, 1 million enemies. Everything is times 1 million. 1 million haters, 1 million uncles, 1 million aunts, everybody want to try to stop you. But you know what? I just don't let them stop me. I just stay focused. And no matter what, I'm going to do what I got to do. And go ahead, you guys. What you want to say?
Yeah, no, one thing I was going to ask you, and actually it's going to come back to Charlie and everything, was you had some of those similar kind of experiences being a child actor and everything. And a lot of times we hear the horror stories of child actors when they are child actors. And of course, we all know some of those horror stories that have been well told and overly told and all of that. So I would love to hear your thoughts about getting into the industry so young. And then later on, I want to hear from Chucky as to when he realized he was good at martial arts and wanted to get involved in martial arts. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about even getting involved in the acting field at such a young age, because like you said, you got into it as a child actor.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just have to say, Chucky, it's so crazy that we were paired on this episode together, because I'm from San Diego originally, and I got a black belt in Taekwondo when I was about 11 years old. So we got a little something in common. Yeah, it's tricky. Those are very formative years. I mean, young years are very formative years. I had a very supportive mother. It took going to LA, went back and forth to LA a lot as a 12, 13-year-old. And you have to have that kind of support in order for something like that to work at that age, if you don't literally live in that city, right? But it's, it's very consuming. You're very impressionable. Your decision-making skills are not developed yet. You know what I mean? You just want what feels good, and that's not always a very good thing. So, I think it goes wrong for a lot of kid actors because they don't have that kind of like guidance and support built into their fabric. I had a mother who very much watched and just was very aware of all the things, sometimes a little too much. But, it can be challenging. It can be, there's so many examples of how it went wrong, unfortunately, really unbelievably talented people who just like did not have the right kind of foundations or guidance to take them through it, because who can survive that? It's like not reality, when you're going through those kinds of things and that kind of attention, like Chucky said. There's all the love, but there's all the hate too that comes with it. And, in the arts and acting and all that, it's kind of like it's a self-validating kind of career anyway. Like you're validated by people telling you did a good job all the time. That's like how you kind of gauge your success a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, it can be really tricky, but I think that it's not impossible. It's not a bad thing. But I do think that guidance and that somebody really kind of keeping an eye out for the things, a level-headed person is very integral to making that go seamlessly or as seamlessly as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing you just said that I found really interesting, and it's actually come up on this network, International Broadcast Media, with our founders and everything, is that they oftentimes talk about the fact that they feel that we're not taught enough about things that we should be taught at an early age, and like entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and they would even probably argue the arts and all of that. They actually think that we're actually, in some ways, using an 18th century model when we're in plainly the 21st century, the year being 2021 and all of that. So as somebody that teaches entrepreneurs, Dr. Raquel, what is your thoughts on that? How do you think we're doing in the sense of actually teaching folks these kind of skills that they should be learning and everything, probably at that school age? And I think if I remember correctly, you and your husband have kids, so you probably are teaching them about entrepreneurship and all of that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts as to how the education system is doing in that realm.
Ooh, not great. Not great. I have lamented myself, that kids aren't given that, level of education. And, for me, I've had to learn a lot of stuff much later in life. And, my husband and I, there's been some rocky times, right? And so much can be, so much of that stress and failure and bankruptcy and craziness can be avoided by incorporating more of that, financial education. And I'm speaking particularly about the financial piece. And actually, that's one of the things that I want to support my mompreneurs with is, excuse me, in also educating themselves about how to handle money, same thing that I'm trying to do, so that, again, we can pass that on to our kids, because we are sort of the epicenter of that education, right? Bringing up a family. And I think that the more that we can do that, the more that we can also advocate to create the changes that we need to create in our educational system, so that we are much better informed consumers and are making much wiser decisions when it comes to money. And of course, being an entrepreneur, it also kind of puts you more readily in touch with that and the importance of it, hopefully. Yeah. But even in general, having that financial piece, I know a lot of, it's really heartwarming to me right now to see a lot of women entrepreneurs going out there and educating other people about finances. And especially when I see, programs and people that are specifically focusing on educating the youth and people of color and women in regard to empowering them about money and how to create a successful financial future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, Charlie, you mentioned this earlier, and I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on this. But one of the things that I'm a big proponent of, and I mentioned Monica earlier, Monica Burns, but definitely here in the Triangle area of North Carolina, but also I would argue all over the country and all over the world, we are seeing a lot of artists and entrepreneurs and even sports figures using their platform in order to be activists and things of that nature. So how important do you think it is for folks to use whatever their position of power is, whether it's an artist or whether it's an entrepreneur or whether it's a sports figure, as an activist? Because like I said, I remember definitely with Black Lives Matter, we saw the WNBA step into the forefront. We've definitely seen it with some of the NFL players and a number of other folks. But I was just wondering your thoughts, and I'll start with you, Charlie, and work my way down into the importance of artists being activists.
Yeah. It's very important is the short answer. The people that we see visibly the most are the quickest way to get a message out, right? I will say that I think that the challenge of all of it is finding that place of being able to listen on both ends, right? And in order for progress to be made, because I will say that, in my observation of these kinds of moments when famous people or highly visible people speak out, if you're not ready to listen, then it does incite the other side getting a little, puffed up, and we have to work through that stage of the things, right? And so that's always the thing that I always come back to. I was like, yes, of course it's important, because how are we gonna, it the progress, right? When people come out and support what's important, but I haven't found the quickest way through getting through that part of it, that like, wait, but my place is right. No, but my place is right. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's kind of that, like that secret ingredient that I don't know what that answer is yet. And still searching for what that is. But yeah, I mean, if we don't have that part of the approach, then I just think it makes things take a lot longer to happen.
Yeah. And what about from an entrepreneurship standpoint? Because I have seen some entrepreneurs also be activists, Dr. Raquel. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, as well as just the general community at large.
Right. Well, what first comes to mind for me is that saying that goes, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? That when we're in a position to be able to lift others, I think that it becomes important for us to do that, to speak on behalf of those who can't, or whose voice isn't being heard. And also, I think it's important for us to exemplify what it is that we want to see. So I love what you said about listening first, and what kind of person do we want to be, and how do we want to show up? And this is actually something that I speak a lot about in my community of mom entrepreneurs, is that for us to educate other people and show them what's possible and create a better world, we got to start with ourselves as well. And it is in that example that we show others what is not only what is possible, but also what is the, how can I put it? Show compassion, show authenticity, show persistence, show, like the great qualities that we all admire, the people that we admire, right? Is like, how do we embody those? And the more that we embody that, the more it's going to come through, and it's going to impact everybody that we come into contact with, starting with our very own families.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the other things I was curious about is all of y'all, to some degree or another, whether it's Chucky, whether it's you, Charlie, are entrepreneurs. So what kind of advice would you give to other folks that would want to go into that entrepreneurial space? Because like I said, starting in a theater guild is definitely an entrepreneurial activity, and definitely doing your own movie is an entrepreneurial activity. So for those that are sitting back watching and are thinking, well, I want to go into this entrepreneurial space, what kind of advice would you give them? So I'll start with you, Chucky, and then I'll come to Charlie and Dr. Raquel. So if somebody wanted to become an entrepreneur, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, they got to make sure they got their base together. They have to know what their talent is, and they have to be, like the lady said, you have to be persistent. A lot of people lag, so they lose. It's like, it's not nobody gonna come and just pick you up and carry you across the red line. You have to be focused and know what you want, and don't let nothing stop you. Like she said, education is important. As a child actor or martial artist, I began performing on stage at like 10. We won silver dollars. So that made me say, hey, you know what? Money, I can make money with this. And my teacher took me on the tournament circuit, and we were the first to make money before UFC and all that came along, So once I found out that you use your talent to your finest level, you got to be focused, because a lot of people, they sit around and they make excuses, and they don't want to do nothing. They want somebody to just bring the cake to them and the ice cream too. And it just don't work like that. I just believe you got to make it happen. And while you're sitting on the side talking smack, I'm going to do mine. Because the Bible said, be like the ant, don't be a sluggard. You have to move forward. You have to keep on going. I ain't never saw an ant turn around and go backwards and ask somebody, what should I do? It just keeps on going and keeps on creating a way, make a way out of no way, as Bruce Lee would say. So you just got to know your craft, be serious, and remember, if you lag, you lose. If you don't give it all you got, you ain't going to get all you could have gotten. So it's up to you. It's up to you. You got to be serious. Like, I done wrote letters to Oprah, and she wrote me back. I done talked to people about Tyler Perry, and they talked to me back. You got to take action. Just like in a fight, you can't just sit out on the rope and rope a dope. You got to bam, 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 bam. You got to get inside and then get outside. You got to make phone calls. You got to be persistent. My brother Lando was really successful, but one of the things he taught me is the three things: desire, determination, and discipline. Those things you need to succeed. If you don't get that, you might as well just get you a shopping cart and go that way.
Makes sense. Charlie, what is your thoughts? And I'm going to bring in two more guests as well, but Mr. Carl is definitely very much involved in inspiration. He actually just wrote a very powerful piece about inspiration on LinkedIn, and I'd love for him to share that thought eventually and everything. But Charlie, right now, I'd like to hear your thoughts about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I really just think Chucky just nailed it. It's really a combination. My go-get-emness in this front, it kind of came a little bit later to me. I was on like a one-track goal at one point. For me, so I don't really have a lot of those kind of business backgrounds where I've been plotting these things my whole life. For me, it really was about dialing in my mental state about it. Having that attitude, just like he said, about not letting anything stop you, that why not me mentality. And honestly, another level than that is just purpose, and I think that surrounding yourself with people who have accomplished those kinds of things in their life and who that's important to makes a big difference. I think that is an intense part of people hanging on to that. And for me, I was like, I hit 40 and I was like, okay, I'm not acting anymore. Sure, I direct some things. I have my hand in the arts, but when I'm 90 and I'm, looking back on everything, what do I want to say that I was able to do, and ultimately I'm just like, I want to matter. And I want to have I want to say that I helped, do something with, and further something, and leave a contribution. And that has a big, and then the possibilities are endless. It's anything, whatever it is, like you just focus on it. Don't let anything get in your way, and don't let failure be an option. Even if you don't have the skills, you know what I mean? You'll figure it out. If failure is not an option, you're committed to it, you'll figure it out, and you'll learn the things that you need to learn. So, for me, that's what it was for me. Very much more of a mental application for me.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I would love to hear from Dr. Raquel as well. But I did want to bring in Carl and his thoughts about inspiration, because a lot of what we're talking about is inspiration. And I know you did that powerful piece on LinkedIn about inspiration and all of that. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that. And I'm also going to bring in another one of Dr. Raquel's friends who has also joined us, which is Kara. So Kara has also joined the party as well. So Kara is here and we'll share some thoughts also. But definitely share a little bit about inspiration, because I do know that that's something that you just recently wrote about on LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm nice to meet everybody. I'm Carl Sean Watkins, U.S. Army vet, aspiring attorney, and inspirationalist. And I just coined that phrase actually for myself. I do a lot of writing. I wrote a bunch of articles for LinkedIn, and I have a what I call a daily words series, which and I think I shared this with Mark the last time I was on. That I got a quick story. I got a dictionary from my dad as a young lad, because I used to like to read and write and scribble as a little kid. And of course, for Christmas, I did not want that, even though I did have all the Dr. Seuss books and all the other books, but I was kind of confused by that at Christmas time. And he pulled me up on the couch. He had to talk with me. He's like, son, I see something different in you. So this is the reason I gave you this. So we're going to have our little game. And I was a dad's kid. So anything that he said that we were going to do together, it made me happy. So he said, what we're going to do, we're going to take this dictionary. We're going to take each word starting from letter A, and we're going to read it. We're going to be able to define it, spell it, and I'm going to help you to learn how to write sentences using the words that we found. So, of course, that just made my heart glad. So it was just something that me and Dad could have one-on-one. And when he passed away, and I was 15 years old when he died, and I had no idea. It took us about 8 or 9 months to actually get through the dictionary, because some words were short, and some I was excited, so I did words. Some words I did 2 or 3 words in a day instead of the one that it calls for. But me and my mom had a conversation after he passed, and it just hit me that what he was really doing by him just being a carpenter, his skill was, he was smart up here. He wasn't school smart. He just got out the 12th grade. But he was kind of savvy in other things, in other ways. And what he was giving me was preparing me. So he said that even in his talking to me, he said, what I'm going to give you is going to last you for Christmases to come. And he said it's going to be a greater gift than just this one that you're disappointed with. And as a 5-year-old child, you can't get the dynamic of that in what your parents see with you. But as me and my mom talked about it as I got to be older, he gave me vocabulary. He gave me confidence. He gave me speech. He gave me so many things as an African-American man he knew I would need going and cultivating and being a part of the world, what it was. And for him not to be as smart as at least I thought he was, once I got the dynamic of that, he was kind of like a genius to me, because he was feeding and pouring into me when it was obviously that I had no idea what he was doing, but he did. And that's what I do with inspiration. I take a word, regardless of whatever the word is. I often put on posts for someone to give me a word, and I defined it because I also want you to know the definition of it. But what I write, and inspirational wise, is what that word does for me, for you. So most people will just see something like inspiration, and of course you get all of these different thoughts about inspiration. But when I write it and you read it, it resonates with who's ever reading it. And that's just a gift that I got from God. So that's some of the things that I do. I just got off a podcast this morning with Kara, and we kind of talked about some of these same things. And I'm right now going into an entrepreneur field. I start law school in the fall. I'm studying civil rights and family law. But I got a creative passion, and I've always had a passion for helping others. Now, the law school part is, of course, I have to make an income, and I want it to be of stability. But my passion is spreading light to others, I don't have to be in a pulpit to do that. I don't have to be a preacher to do that. I don't have to be the Pope to do that. All I got to do is give inspiration to those who's willing to listen. And that's what I do on LinkedIn. That's kind of like my form of passion.
No, I appreciate you there and everything. Dr. Raquel and everything, I would love to hear your advice that you would give to entrepreneurs. And I'm actually going to have all of y'all, and I did this the last time that Carl was on, think of a word that might be your word of inspiration that you use in your own life and everything. So I'll hear your words of advice on the entrepreneurship side, but also any word that you might have that's an inspirational word that is kind of like your go-to inspirational word.
Yeah, well, first I want to say I love everything that the three gentlemen shared, Charlie and Carl and Chucky, about, this element of inspiration. I love the word passion. To me, that's one of my high values is, find something that inspires you. And one of the things, and I think somebody else was alluding to this, the purpose, having a sense of purpose. It's so vital. And that's one of the things that I work with my moms about, is connecting with what that purpose is and knowing that desire. We all have this innate desire to do more, be more, and have more. And that's a God-given thing. And that when we can connect with that and follow that and trust it, that, the path is shown. Everything else is figure outable along the way, like Charlie was saying, right? Like all the business skills and how to do this and how to do that, all that stuff, you can learn it. But the main thing is following that passion and knowing that there's a purpose and focusing on, what is it that I want to leave behind and how am I contributing to this world. So I just love that, and finding mentorship. And I think somebody else also had it said about having people in your life that can help cultivate that gift and can give you those messages of, yes, you can do it. Let me show you. It's so important to have people that believe in us, even if it's one person. For so many people, there's been one person that just turned their whole life around, and it's so crucial.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Chucky? What's like a word that you use for your own inspiration? It might even be a word that you use when you're in the middle of those bouts and things of that nature. But what is something that you use as an inspirational word?
Go. I would think the word is go, like action. Take action. Go for it. As she was speaking earlier, right now, my mom just tried to call me, and I got that one person in my corner. I got a big family, but my mom she's raised 9 kids. So, she beat us into action. So I just believe that you got to go for it to get it. You can't make an excuse. You're going to have an excuse, but you know what they say about excuses. So when I see somebody doing something wrong, I also think at that point, do the right thing. If you do the wrong thing, you got to expect the wrong thing to happen. If you do your best, then you're going to get blessed. Okay.
Yep, definitely. Kara, what about you? What's the word that's on your mind and everything that's your inspirational word?
Well, first of all, we've talked about this. It's Kara.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. No, you're good. So first of all, it's good to meet you, Charlie, and Chucky, and it's good to see you again, Raquel, Carl, and Mark. And one word that comes to mind is just purpose. Just finding out your purpose and having it. We all have it. And unfortunately, there are people who really don't feel that they have one or that they're entitled to it. And it's something that everyone can have and should have the ability to find for themselves. And sometimes we just get lost in what is that, and really kind of mulling over in our not enoughness, and just understanding that no, we all have a right to define our purpose and to find it and just have it be part of the journey. Like we all have that right. It's so important to have that mindset. All of us do.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, Chucky, you just said something that would actually be my word and everything, which is definitely, I am very much a supporter of family and all of that. So I would actually put family as that word because family is very important to me. I'm definitely always checking in on my mom, checking in on my dad and my younger brother and a number of other family members. But as part of your family, you have a larger family that you are part of as well. And I think that we all have our tribes. And in fact, I consider all of y'all part of my creative and kind of entrepreneurship and activist tribe. So I think that family and tribe is another very important word. So those would be my two words: is family and tribe, because I think that all of y'all are part of that tribe that is the tribe of like-minded folks that I am part of and all of that. But I'd love to hear Charlie and his word of the thought and word of inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just for me, it's purpose. It's purpose, or just wanting to matter. When I look back on it all, and what you just said is so right. I mean, that is absolutely another driving force of a lot of this for me is that connectivity to the people around me, my tribe, the people who we're all doing this together with. It doesn't even have to be specifically the same thing, but just those of us that are really just trying to lift each other up and accomplish like big things, that everybody gets to benefit from. That's that is so much of the fuel that keeps us pushing through the setbacks that do come along the way, for whatever it is. It's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah. And I want to come back to Chucky. I had asked earlier, I mentioned it to definitely Charlie, and I mentioned it to Dr. Raquel and everything, but were you the kid that was always into martial arts at a young age, or is it something that you developed as an interest much later in life? So I know you said you were doing it as a kid, but was it something that you automatically went into, or was there something that brought you into the whole concept of doing martial arts? And what do you consider one of your greatest successes as a martial artist?
Okay, well, basically, I have a big family, so I had to stay a lot of times with my grandfather who lived in Chicago's Chinatown. And my grandfather used to always get up really early in the morning, and I'd always look at him, seeing him come and go to the store like 6 in the morning. One of the mornings he was bringing me back, and he introduced me to this friend of his, and he had all these little kids out there doing these moves, and I just liked it. So the next thing you know, that became me. It's like 6, 7 years old. I was watching Kato on television, and I just was drawn to martial arts 100%. I'd run up and down the stairs in the building. I ran into different Kung Fu practitioners, Chinese guys, and they would teach me moves. Everybody liked me. My first nickname was Quick Kick, so it was just fun. I like martial arts a lot. And I end up, like I said, I did that one show. Then my one teacher, Julius Baker, put me on the tournament circuit. I won 3 first-place trophies at my first tournament, so I knew that just was what I did. That was just who I was. And I would go to the theater every weekend. So that was a place that I pretty much lived in. We had a theater right across the street from my house. I mean, I was watching Bruce Lee, The Chinese Connection, every Kung Fu movie possible. It was just a part of me. I think being the first to do martial arts with music on television by Prince, I think that was like one of my biggest accomplishments. Because after that, it became all around the world, everybody doing martial arts with music. Because at first, it wasn't martial arts with music. It was, and martial arts hadn't blended all together. Bruce Lee was making a mix of martial arts, but most of the other ones were mostly traditional. So I put martial arts, music, gymnastics, and acting together to my routines. And I became the #1 martial arts performer in the United States. And the rest is history. Check out my website, MasterChuckyCurrie.com.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Definitely encouraging others to check out the website as well and all of that. One of the things I'm always curious about is misconceptions that folks have of all of the different fields. So and I'll start with you, Chucky. What is one of the things that you think folks have as a misconception about martial arts? Because there's a misconception about every field that's out there and everything. And of course, I'm going to get to Charlie as well with acting. But I was wanting to know, what do you think is one of the major misconceptions folks have about martial arts?
Well, I think a lot of people think martial arts just is fighting, somebody beating somebody up or self-defense, you just use it to defend yourself. But martial arts to me has a lot to do with discipline, because you have to be persistent with your training. Everything takes persistence to succeed. I mean, that they don't realize that it's a whole lot more behind martial arts than just action. You have to mentally focus, in order to become successful in everything that you do. And if you don't put that focus in there, you get sporadic, everywhere. And if you're everywhere trying to do everything, then you're not going to really get to the point that you're trying to get to. It's like you had to have an aim. You had to, like, that's another good word. You had to have aim at what you want to do, write it down, and follow through.
Yeah. And what do you think is a misconception, Dr. Raquel, about being both a mom and a mom entrepreneur? Because a lot of times I think folks have misconceptions about those two roles. So I'd love to hear some of your misconceptions that you feel folks have about being a mom and an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I'll tell you two. Number one, I can either be a good mom or an entrepreneur, not both.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, building a business is all about the external things, which it is not, right? And by the external things, I'm talking about, oh, I'm just going to create this pretty website and then everybody's going to see that and they're just going to like reach out to me and be ready to be my client. No, there is no easy button. And this goes to what you were saying, Chucky, right? That it all really starts in here and in here, right? That is really the main part. Who are you being? And in accordance to who you're being, how you're showing up, that is how the results are going to come, because it's going to lead you to taking certain actions and being persistent and not getting so easily derailed, right? It's not about all the external stuff. That's all figure outable, but it's really, you got to start with yourself.
Yeah. And what about you, Charlie? What do you think are some of the misconceptions about the entrepreneurship space that you're in, but also the acting space that you've been in since being a child and everything? And I know there's probably a number of them, but what are some of those misconceptions that you have to fight against on a regular?
Well, she was exactly right. You can't just build a website and expect everybody to just come at you. Like you gotta hustle. That's I'm literally going in the middle of that at the moment. So I feel that. Acting in general and show business in general, I just think I think that the biggest misconception is how hard it is. There's different elements and different genres of performing arts. For myself as a musical theater performer, I think people see the 3 hours that they go to the show that night and think that that's it, 3 hours a night. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. When you're a singer, the vocal maintenance, 8 shows a week is a lot. You know what I mean? First of all, you only get 1 day off a week, not 2, like a lot of 9-to-5 jobs do, right? You don't get your holidays. You're working through the holidays because everybody wants to see shows at holidays. But even aside from that actual on stage time, I mean, the maintenance that it is just, it's no different than an athlete. It really is not. And especially if you're dancing, a lot, and depending on the load of the show, singing, I mean, vocal maintenance, I know depending on the kind of show it was, if it was a heavy singing role that I had to do, like I don't talk during the day, that's not fun. You got on tour, you go to all these cool cities, but you can't do anything because you have to like maintain so you can show up at night and sing for the audience and sound good. Right. And you're always playing hurt too. I mean, you're never 100%, the longer you, especially in the long running show. I think the biggest pet peeve an actor or somebody in show business gets is, but what do you do for your real job, right? So there's a lot of perception out there that acting or doing theater or plays or whatever is not a real job unless you're like on Broadway, right? Which is great, but there's a lot of times not spent that you're still working your butt off, and you still got to pay your bills and you're still supporting yourself. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of that happens for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And go ahead, Raquel.
I was just reminded, Charlie, of a book that I read, was really wonderful. It's called Real Artists Don't Starve. And it's all about debunking the myth of the starving artist, and like how the most successful artists are the ones who, they're also great business people, right? And they learn how to do that, right? And that those two do not necessarily go together like we sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I will say that I definitely spent some days like not being able to afford too much food. But to your point though, it's my own fault for not being creative enough to know how to like fill the in-between times with things that are just as, that are in some ways easier that you could do both. You know, I think as an actor, a lot of times we think the only thing we can do is wait tables or something like that, right? Because it's easy, it's flexible, it's quick money, and it's just not the case. And I think that this year specifically has shown us that. You know, a lot of my actor friends, a lot of my artist friends, I mean, are just coming up with so much creativity to figure out how to make it work. And I always say that even when I'm directing shows or whatnot, you know, a lot of times we get frustrated. We can't get this amount of lights or this amount of actors or whatnot. But like, there is that element though, that limitation oftentimes creates way more creativity and way more interesting products or avenues or whatnot, you know? So, you know, there's silver linings in all of it for sure.
But actually, y'all both bring up an interesting point, and I'd love to hear both you and Chucky talk about this, because I oftentimes do hear, and I brought it up on this show a couple of times, that concept that you can't, that you have to work that gig job, whether it's driving. A friend of mine is a funk musician, drives Uber, whether it's a number of other gig jobs that actually take away from your artistic abilities and take away from your artistic time. So as a director, so I'll start with you, Charlie, what do you do when folks are telling you that they feel that they almost have to go, say, work for an Uber or a DoorDash or something that will actually sometimes take them away from their true craft? So as a director, when they're having that conversation with them and everything, what is your advice? And then I'd like to hear Chucky's thoughts about this as well, because I do feel that a lot of times folks get caught up in having to feel like they have to get that pay the bill job. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately in the arts, it is very much a part of that experience, you know, and everybody, you know, if you're going through like, you know, your childhood and college like I did, and everybody preps you for that, but it's just the thing that you do not know what that means until you're doing it. Right. And especially when you're living in cities like New York City, I mean, it's expensive, you know, it's, and there's a lot of people out there doing the same darn thing. And so it is very much a part of the experience, especially in the early days. And it takes a certain personality, I think, that will be able to handle something like that. I would say, because I did spend a lot of time doing those things, you know, in my 20s, that I didn't think I had other options. I do think that it is important to find that side gig that is something that you either, you know, like or have interest in, or that maybe if there's not an emotional fulfillment, you're good at it. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't, you know, suck your soul. You know, I spent a lot of time in like, you know, bars and clubs, like working as a waiter and like until like 3 a.m, you know what I mean? And it killed me, you know? And I really think that it got in the way. You know, it's hard enough to, especially when you're trying to be an actor in New York, it's hard enough just to get the job. I mean, in the first place, that alone is a lot to push through for an extended period of time, you know? That I would say if I could go and do it all again, I would be on the search for things that have a lot more creativity in them. And it would help sustain. And it would also be using the things that I'm good at, but in a different way, right? That's kind of, that's what I would try to redo if I could, for sure.
Gotcha. What about yourself, Chucky? Have you found yourself doing a lot of these jobs that are not necessarily in the martial arts or in the entertainment field? And if so, how did you manage to survive in those jobs?
Well, it's kind of crazy because one of my martial arts teachers at one point, he told me, you're not going to be a karate bum. You're going to get a job. You're going to work. So I ended up getting into security and working bodyguard for different celebrities and stuff like that. And right now I'm working security, and I don't like it, but I do it. And I just find a way to be creative, you know, because I work at a store where it's like thousands of people a day coming through. And to me, the outfit that I'm wearing is like somebody said, like, it's like a uniform, but at the same time, it's like, it's just it doesn't show who I am. So it's fun. I just be creative. I meet different people. I talk to them about different things. And when I see the crooks, I let them know that they're being watched. They ain't getting away with nothing. And I just kind of play that role because, yeah, I got to pay the rent. I got to pay these bills. And that's a fact. So at the same time, yeah, I got my website up too. So I'm working in 3D. So I got the website here. I got the Facebook. I mean, I got all of these things happening. And I have my agent working in behind that. I just know that you really, you know, you got to use it or lose it. You know, whatever you got to give it your best. And after that, things will come together.
That makes a lot of sense. Kara, what do you think are some of the misconceptions? And some of them actually might even involve things to do with acting and sports and a number of other things. But what do you think are some of the misconceptions folks have about nutrition? Because that's kind of your field and everything. So, what is the misconception that folks have about nutrition? And how do you even encourage folks that are in that sports or that theatrical space to even get into that nutrition? Because like Charlie, and I've had this conversation with you before, I'll be quick to rush to a fast food restaurant, and if I'm really poor, I'll be quick to get some ramen noodles and everything of all those nature. And we know that none of those are necessarily very nutritional. So definitely, what are some of your encouragements, and what are some of the misconceptions that folks have about nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have toyed with the thought of just like randomly sending you like just like meal plan ideas. Like, what out of these proteins, fats, and carbs, what do you like? Let's make a meal out of it. Open your fridge, turn on your camera. Like, let's see what's in your fridge. Let's make a meal. But like, I'm always like that anyways. First of all, I just love health in general and nutrition. And for me, it's more than just food. It's finding an applicable meaning to it. So for me as a health coach, I put the word intuitive in front of it because you really do have to, at some point, like you have your basics, you have your foundations of nutrition and health, but you have to also be able to trust yourself to come up with the right health plan for you. And it's going to change as your life changes, but one misconception there are a couple. So when I definitely started telling people, my family specifically, I'm going to do this health coach thing for real. One was like, what even is a health coach? People think I'm a yoga instructor, like that's all I do, or that I'm a nutritionist or a doctor, which I don't have those credentials. I don't have, that. I would love to, my plan is to become a certified nutritionist eventually, because that is just my path. I love nutrition, but it is kind of cute. Like, it is cute what people come up with in their mind, what a health coach is. Another misconception is that people think that having a health coach is unattainable, like, oh, that's not for me. And I think that if you are a coach or entrepreneur in some sort and you have a service, you provide a service, people think, oh, that's not for me. Well, what is for you? What are your priorities? A lot of people are afraid to really go for, what drives my purpose and what actions can I take to go there, right? We default to Netflix and wine and chocolate, which is amazing, of course. I mean, I love all that too, but like, really, what are your priorities? And they become emotional, like suckers and in time and financial, and just kind of being that person to be like, no, health that supports you, that's attainable. It's up to you to decide that you want to go there, that you want to define what healthy means to you. And so I love having that conversation with people too, and really getting behind that, because also another misconception about nutrition is that people think it's all about detoxes and cleanses and spiritual journeys, and that's not it. So it's kind of drawing that out of people and having that conversation. I've been talking to people recently, just getting bits of input from just random people. What is nutrition? What does that mean to you? And I'm putting that together for a project I'm working on. But it's highlighting that everyone thinks of nutrition a little differently. So I like that. It's kind of.
Well, I'm going to put everybody on the spot here because you just gave me an idea. So, Charlie, what is nutrition to you? And do you think you have a nutritional diet, and your wife and the rest of the family? So what is nutrition to you? And do you think actors in general are nutritious or have a nutritious diet? So what is nutrition to you?
I mean, you would not be very happy with my nutritional routine at the moment. I'm not going to lie.
I don't judge. I would say, does it make you happy or does it put you in default?
Well, I just try really not to think about it all that much until I'm like taking a shower and I see what's happening. But yeah, no, my biggest thing is I'm a sucker for just something easy, right? I don't love to cook. It's not my thing. It takes too long. The reward is never worth the amount of time that, went into making the actual meal. And I'm a victim of that for sure. But again, all of that to me, I think it sounds like a mental association, right? Ultimately, and like reframing how you approach all of that mentally. And I have to like recalibrate those kinds of things for myself. But, we get in those ruts, right? And depending on the week, like if it's busy and like, and it's hard, it's sometimes just hard to keep a good routine of it going, figure out how to set yourself up for the success of that. That's always been my biggest challenge.
Yeah. It's like you psych yourself up to like jump over hurdles, and you psych yourself up so much that you just don't do it. You just spend way too much time thinking about it that all you need to do is just like jump. And
it's also, for me, it's also like, I'll always start out with like a good like surge of enthusiasm for like a handful of days and feel really good about it. And then after a while, I'm like, oh man, it's so much work. You know what I mean? Then I like fall off the train and I'm like, well, might as well wait till next month,
Yeah, and then you're like, might as well eat this whole package of Oreos because I'm already in this place.
Are you in
That's
my
what you know, Charlie?
Was that? Yeah, I know, right? I know.
Raquel, what about you? What does nutrition mean to you? And what does the thought of nutrition mean to you? And do you think that you do a good job of nutrition, Dr. Raquel?
Oh my gosh. Well, I certainly do not do as good a job as I could. That's for sure. I think there's always room for improvement, and when I think of nutrition, I really do think of, feeding our body what our body needs in order to function most efficiently, and also loving our bodies, by feeding it the right foods. And again, I try, and there's many times when I kind of, fall off the wagon, like Charlie was saying, and kind of reach for whatever's easiest. I find that when I plan, I do a lot better. But yeah, that's my thoughts on nutrition. And again, I'm going to say that's where coaching comes in, right? Because it's the same thing for the work that I do, right? A lot of the ladies say, well, yeah, I need to take better care of myself and take more me time and sleep more and work out regularly. And they don't do it. So it's not knowing what to do. Sometimes it requires having that support, that accountability, to set up a set of circumstances that allow us to be successful in creating the habit changes that we want to create.
And sometimes I think there's cultural differences as well. Because as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know that many of the Latin American countries and everything, but I know a lot of times Panamanian dishes can be quite spicy and they can also be quite good, but that also isn't all the time the most nutritious. And the same thing can be said for African American foods and things of that nature. That's the more traditional Southern African American foods and all of that. So sometimes even our cultural awareness also gets in the way. Also, because like I said, I have had the pleasure of having it in some Latin American dishes. I can't remember if any of them were Panamanian or not, but I know that they can be quite spicy.
Now, so just for a point of reference here, I just want to make mention, Panamanian cuisine by default is not as spicy as other cuisines. Like, when you think of Mexican food, them folks are into spice as a general rule, like in a much bigger way than Panamanians.
Good.
But yes, you're right. But there's definitely a lot of fried stuff, and a lot of carbs, and it's not
carbs
great.
Carbs are good. They fuel your body.
No, that's true. You're right.
So carbs can be good. What about you, Chucky? You're in the martial arts. I'm thinking that you have to have a nutritious diet all the time in order to stay physically fit and in that security space. So do you do a good job in that space, or how do you do with nutrition, and what does nutrition mean to you?
Yes. I think I do pretty well in it. I stay focused a lot. When I was on the set with Brad Pitt, he was sitting there eating veggies. That was his snacks. And I was like, okay. And my teacher, he took me to the vegetable department. He said, this is all of the good stuff right here. Everything else over there is garbage. So this is what you need to focus on. So I work at the grocery store. So I'm constantly surrounded with all kinds of foods. But I try to make sure in the morning, first of all, before I leave my house, I take my vitamins. And then I watch my diet. I don't just go crazy. Every now and then I like baked chicken. I like fried chicken, but I focus on the baked chicken because I know it's better. So I just try to focus on what I think is best for me, no matter what. I mean, I got some noodles sitting in there on the cabinet, but I hardly ever eat them. I mean, they're just there. I guess it's like a sign of don't do this. But I think I do a pretty good job of eating, and I exercise all the time. I mean, my job as an officer, I mean, they don't got to tell me to move. I just get up and go and walk around and I see all types of foods and stuff to eat. And so I guess I'm satisfied mentally without even having to go out and eat that particular thing. You know what I'm saying? I drink plenty of water. I make sure my system is constantly flushing, and I feel pretty well. I mean, and like she said, wine and chocolate, I got my wine and I had my chocolate. No, but at the same time, I try to stay focused on a lot of more than half of a vegetarian diet.
Yeah.
Sounds good. What about you, Carl? Do you think you're doing good in the nutrition category? And what's misconceptions that folks have about lawyers, since you're working to be a lawyer, and also even in the ministry, because you've got friends that have been in that ministry space. So what are some of the misconceptions folks have about those two fields?
I'd say in the ministry. I've been in the ministry about 15 years now with my church. The misconception is that preachers take all the money. I can tell you that's a big, and they don't all drive Cadillacs and big cars. That's one of the misconceptions that is pretty much of that. And the misconception of people in law, and law has to be what I'm learning and what I have learned, that it's not particular. And when I say that, people think of lawyers, they just think of lawyers as just being these crooked people. When I say crooked, I don't mean so much demonstratively as that, they may be crooked, but the essence and the perception of them is that they're always out to get something. And from the law and the professors and advisors and lawyers that I worked for and interned for, it was all about helping. So that actually curbed my misconception, because you see so much on the TV with they call them ambulance chasers. Actually, that's a very lucrative field, but it's lucrative for a reason, because they kind of like hunt down that accident victim, or that, train accident, or that big plane crash, or, you have those attorneys that do that. But for the most part, those that I've ran into are actually about helping, being there for someone that really needs it. They can't understand it. And that's where I'm going into that goal. My simplicity is to give an understanding to those who don't know how the law works, to let them know that there's someone in the law that will interpret the law to help them. And I think that's been a big misconception of law. A lot of people that if you don't know the law, you're afraid of the law. Well, actually, it's a reverse. If you get yourself involved in the law and get some understanding into the law, it will work in your benefits. And that's why lawyers get to play on people the way that they do. And those misconceptions create themselves. As far as nutrition, man, I am one that, even though I'm a mixed family, I have a white mom, a Indian grandma. I got a lot of mix, so I don't like gravitate to any particular food. Soul food I did not like, and I guess that's the white side that came out, what have you. But I just was not a soul food kind of guy. So and because I always saw the gluttony in that, family barbecues and picnics, and I always saw the gluttony. Everybody eat until they can't get out the chairs and that kind of thing. I always thought of food as this thing where you just eat to live. You know what I mean? You don't live to eat. And I grew up with different kind of races that it just was a thing to eat. Like, I'm going to eat more than Uncle Charlie because he got 4 ribs on this plate. I'm going to put 5, So my conception, my thing of nutrition is If I'm hungry, I eat. And those things that I eat, they're filling. I don't never want to get up from the table tight. So if I had a nice breakfast, if I know I eat pancakes or something, I'll eat 2 instead of 3. Eggs, I'll eat to 2 instead of 3. Bacon, I eat. I eat those proportions that when I get up, there's some room for something else. I'm like Chucky here. I grew up in Chicago, man. Karate was my thing. My mom she put me and my brothers in that so we would stay out of the gangs and the drugs and all the other things that went on in the city. So I took Taekwondo from about 6 years old to about 13. And to this day, I am so angry and upset that I did not follow through with that as an adult. I think as soon as I got my way away from where trouble would be, I left that. But it gave me the most disciplined part of my life. And that is a lot of misconception of karate. Because I also watched all the Bruce Lee flicks and all of those things. And the misconception was that you just had that little 90 minutes of just kicking people around, and it was nice and funny. But I also like the relationships and the building and the inner peace and spiritualness that I got out of doing that. And that was something that I really hated that I left. But that's my little soapbox.
No, I appreciate it. And definitely I can relate to what you were saying. I can definitely even think about growing up in a little town called Warrenton, North Carolina. We had a little small movie theater, and it was only known for showing 2 types of movies. It showed the old spaghetti westerns, and it showed the old Bruce Lee movies because, like I said, they didn't get a lot of the first runs at that particular movie theater. So I remember seeing a lot of those Bruce Lee movies and all of that. And I'm not going to lie, I was a fan partially because of the philosophy, because I think that the philosophy is oftentimes wonderful. I was a big fan of the old Kung Fu TV show with David Carradine and all of that, because I oftentimes liked the philosophy that was preached in those shows and everything as he was going around the world and definitely giving you a lot of different positive messages. So definitely that was something that resonated with me. Never really got to train, unlike Charlie and Carl and Chucky, in the field, so never actually got to take any classes. So that is a regret on my part, but I did love hearing about those thoughts and everything. I know that I think Charlie said he might have to leave early, but one of the things I was getting ready to mention is I would like to have all of our guests talk about what they're involved in and what they need. So, Charlie, you started a theater guild. What does the theater guild need, and what are the things that you're looking for to make this theater guild successful? Like I said, you started it first right before the pandemic. I think you said it was in terms of it's actually getting off the ground and everything, but it's now moving forward. So what are some of the things that you need in order to have this happen? And what are some of the things you need in order to have these award ceremonies that you're talking about doing as well?
Right. Well, the bigger program here is a membership-based program. So right now my main focus is just, awareness and people signing up to join, because it's all about that community buy-in, and that community investment in it. And members will get opportunities to post all the things that they're involved in, all the different theatrical skills they have. So it's not just for actors. It's really meant for the entire industry, designers, administrative positions. There's a jobs board on it. It's really just meant to really centralize all the theater tools necessary to help everybody, make it a little more streamlined and connect and thrive. So really awareness is the big thing. The awards program will not start judging until the fall. It needs to wait for live theater to kind of get back on its feet a little bit in a more consistent way. But yeah, just spread the word, tell your people if they're into theater, there's a cool initiative going around called Tobacco Leaf Theater Guild, and sign up and check us out.
And where would they find you on the social media and all of that? I know that speaking of the job board.
The website is tobaccoleaftheaterguild.com. Nice and easy. And same we're on Instagram. What's that?
You said Tobacco Leaf?
Tobacco Leaf Theater Guild. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's about what it is. We're on Instagram. I'm going to branch in due time, but pretty much a one-man band at the moment. So, we're stepping it out.
Cool. But definitely, I know that a lot of folks will be glad to join, and hopefully we'll get lots of folks joining from the international broadcast media and around the world. I know that it's centered here in North Carolina, but are you thinking that all of expanding at any point to creating a bigger, more national or international theater guild, or do you think that you just want to concentrate right now on the area that you're in, which is our Triangle area, or do you think that you were hoping to go on a more global kind of front at some point or another?
Yeah, it's really mainly just for the local scene and for people to take, in the case of the awards, they take awards that they get here and they branch out. A lot of times actors come in from New York and stuff to do shows down here. And that's kind of what helps that national visibility, right? Is that people spread out and keep talking about it. But it is really focused on the Triangle community. And, there's a lot of models out there already. There's a lot of models out there across the country that are very similar. I mean, I did a lot of research and looked at a lot of the different models and really created, the version that I thought represented what we need here. I do have a lot of goals for the future as far as expansion. And yes, I do think geographic boundaries are one of them. I would like to expand it to more of North Carolina and even South Carolina if it came up. But yeah, there's a lot of these little things around that kind of take care of that satellite kind of part of it, So right now it's just for us at the moment.
That sounds good. The Triangle needs it, and definitely, like you said, there is a lot of great theater here, and it definitely needs to get that kind of awareness. And even in the job market, I just saw recently that the director of Full Frame has stepped down from her job, so that's one job that is now available for the job market. So definitely, just stepped down.
Yeah, a lot of the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, a lot of people lost their jobs, so we're hoping to see jobs coming up now, and this is a good place. This is one of the missions for that, and a place to put those kinds of posts on, because we want people in it. We need to get this stuff going again. Yeah. Mark, as you said, I do have to jump out. I got to be somewhere in 20 minutes.
I knew you had to jump out earlier. I knew you had to be the first one to go, and I appreciate you being on. The last thing that I always ask all my guests, and I'll get to all of them, but I'll start with you since you're jumping off, is I always love to hear from my guests their positive thought that they would like to share with our global community. So if you got any positive thoughts or words of encouragement that you would like to give to our global community.
I think, something that I've been really focused on through this whole thing is gratefulness. There's been so much challenge to that. And a lot of people have a lot of different situations. I've been lucky enough to where my, surroundings and my circumstances, while limited in social occasions, I have been able to manage it a lot in a lot better way than a lot of other people have out there, and I'm very grateful. And like I said, there is a mentality that with limitations comes more creativity and a more authenticness about things. That I think that that is something that we could continue to try to work on through moments like this to try to balance out the challenges. And figure out what lessons we're supposed to be taught through this, right? And how we're supposed to come out of this changed and better. And so, yeah, that's kind of like where my heart is right now.
Well, I appreciate it. It's a great place for your heart to be and everything. And I appreciate you being on. As I tell everybody, and Kara can testify to this, that definitely once you come on, you're always welcome back, as could Carl as well. So definitely anytime you got things going on that you want to share with both our local community as well as our national and international community, you always have a home on the various podcasts that I do. So anything that you've got that you want to share, you're always welcome to come back.
Much appreciated. It's been a pleasure. Nice to meet everybody.
Best wishes.
So, Dr. Raquel and everything, tell folks about Mom Entrepreneurs and a little bit about what you're looking for in the sense of even recruiting new mom entrepreneurs. And are you pretty much stuck into the West Coast, or are you looking for mom entrepreneurs all over the globe?
Beautiful. Yes. In fact, one of the gifts of this pandemic is that we have become, I have become so much more aware of the global community, and I've connected with women from all over the country. And so I am looking to expand the community that I've built. It's called Redefining Supermom, and it's on Facebook. So that would be a really great way for anyone to connect with me who is curious about the work that I do, who is a mom entrepreneur and or professional working mom who is trying to balance it all and make it all work. So that would be an easy one to check out. Because you said to share something positive, and I'm going to say to surround yourself with support. Find other people who are also going for their dreams, somebody who can encourage, who can believe with you, who can help you with resources, encouragement, and don't deviate from the path. Seek support. Nobody can do it alone.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely agree with you on that. I do wonder, Dr. Raquel, are you going to have any offshoot groups for those that are not moms but are entrepreneurs? Because we do know that Kara is not a mom, even though she's got a pet mom. But so I don't know whether pet moms count as well. So definitely, we're going to have like an offshoot group for folks that don't fall in the mom category.
Right. Not right now, not as of yet. Perhaps down the line once I am more established and I grow team and all of that. But right now I'm focusing on human moms who also run businesses.
I could put my puppy in like one of those little baby carriers. And
we have a bunny stroller.
Yeah.
We have a bunny. So we've had bunnies, several bunnies that we've already gone through. You've passed away, but we have that carrier.
Oh. So you have a pet bunny, Dr. Raquel? So.
We do. We have a dog and a bunny. At one point, we had 3 bunnies. And one of them was a foster, so we found her a home. And unfortunately, our 2 bunnies passed away. In fact, the first one was last February, so it'll be just about a year, and the other one passed in July. And then we adopted a new bunny in September. So we do have one. His name is Truffle.
Truffle, what a great name. And what's the dog's name?
Woody.
Woody and Truffle. So Woody and Truffle can go with Rita and Henry, which are Kara's dogs and animals and everything. So they can go along with all of that. So it sounds like they could have a wonderful time and everything. I was just curious because I know that sometimes dogs and cats get along, sometimes they don't. But how did the bunny get along with the dog?
Woody is really great at not messing with the bunny. He's actually more or less oblivious. Which in this case is a good thing because bunny can be really in danger if the dog decides to take an interest, but he's pretty much like, yeah, it's okay. It's a bunny.
It's a bunny. Doesn't really care. Chucky, let folks know what kind of things you need in terms of getting your project off the ground. You did mention that you've met a number of super talented folks like Prince and Michael Jackson, who have unfortunately passed on, but Brad Pitt is still with us, and a number of other folks. Definitely always making those contacts. You did the short version, but I know you want to make the fuller version of what you're doing. So tell folks what you need in order to have your success with your project and a little bit about that project.
Okay, well, basically, I ran into Speedy, who is the DJ for Jamie Foxx. So basically, I made a little tie with Jamie Foxx, who's also best friends with Eddie Murphy and Wesley Snipes. So I think that's really cool. But my goal before that little segment came along, I'm still determined to get to Tyler Perry, with Tyler Perry Studios and Oprah Winfrey would own, because I know we got like the little Netflix things coming, and the guy, we had the run on Comedy Show last week, and they called me back. They want me to do 7 minutes a week on their show, and it's just so funny because everybody talking about, oh, that wasn't a short movie, that was a quick flick. I'll go, you know what? It's a quick flick that I did. What did you do? So then everybody got quiet. I'm just saying, you gotta, if you want the best, you gotta aim at the best, And so I know that Tyler Perry Studios, Tyler's done a lot of stuff, and and comedy is really good. And my friend, director Bill Duke, gave me a lot of advice, but he said, aspire to inspire before you expire. And another thing is I have a grandbaby now, so I was thinking of Daddy Daycare when she was talking about the moms. And I still got my mom. So my mom she was on the phone trying to call me right now. We talk almost every day. And I have sisters and a lot of babies in this. And my little brother Reggie, he's really been really helpful too. So I'm just putting together a little production, and I have my cameraman out here, but I really want to, I know a lot of people put a wall around celebrities like Oprah and Tyler Perry, but I figure like this: where there's a will, there's a way. And another thing that you had said earlier, was really impacted is faith, because faith without action is dead. So you have to have faith in what you're doing, and you have to take action to go for it, to get it.
No doubt about that. You definitely got to have that faith in everything along those lines. And actually, I've known that the National Black Theater Festival is in Winston-Salem every year, and Bill Duke has actually, I think, come to that festival, and he's also been down to the American Black Film Festival in Miami. And I know that a lot of times he'll even do these workshops with the actors. So he's definitely very much involved in the acting community, even with developing young actors and folks that are at the beginning of their careers, as well as those veteran folks. So I've definitely seen him still being very much involved, just like I've seen Morgan Freeman still be very much involved as well. So it looks like you're definitely connecting with some great minds and some great power brokers in our community and all of that.
I'd like to say, too, because I met Danny Glover and I had a conversation one-on-one with Danny Glover as well as Andy Garcia. I just think that this, where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, that's the whole thing. You got to really want it to get it. And like I said, you can't slack and expect somebody to carry your bags for you. It's not going to happen. I know because like my son is a rapper. And a lot of times I tell him, hey, man, you got to have a backup to get up. I mean, that's what you got to do. And you got to make yourself do it, because it's too much energy for somebody else to come to the side and try to push you. So when I'm talking about getting to Oprah and Tyler, I know they already said they got a whole lot of stuff they're doing, but I know that I'm bringing talent to the table. So it's not like they just going out of their way. If they help me, I'm helping them at the same time. You got to know your values of who you are and what you carry to the table.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the other things you mentioned, and I think Dr. Raquel mentioned it as well, is I'd love to hear, as we wrap up everything, your thoughts about the importance of faith, because I do think that faith and having that connection, and even Kara was earlier talking about the importance of having that connection between all of the elements of us. And by that, I mean the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical, and all of that. So I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on the importance of having that unified connection to all of the elements of us, as well as the importance of faith. And I'll start with you, Dr. Raquel.
Thank you for calling on me. I was just, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have to get going. For me in the last, I've always been a spiritual person, and I was, brought up Catholic. And it has been actually really, interestingly enough, since my entrepreneurial journey began, that I really started to study about universal laws, and I started to really connect more with my spiritual side, right? And something bigger than me, right? So I know that my dream and my desire is God-given, and it has been, I've seen it. I've seen the evidence of it in my life. And that's one of the things that I lean on, and that I love to pass on to my mom entrepreneurs, that, we're here for something so much bigger than us. And the mission that we have is not about us. It's about serving that purpose, and that dream was put in our heart for a reason. And it's going to require for us to grow and bring more of the amazingness that we are built for, that we sometimes don't even know how awesome we are and how much we have to bring. So it's, so I love that you brought that up, and it's it's been really important for me in my life and in the work that I do as well.
Yep. And like I said, I know you said you got to bounce, and actually we all will be off in about another 12 minutes or so and everything. But if you got to bounce before that, I understand. But as I know that you're getting to bounce off and everything, I'll do the same thing I did with Charlie. And before I get to Chucky, which is any words of encouragement that you would like to share with our global community, because we are here on the International Broadcast Media. And of course, we go all over the world to places like South Africa, Nigeria, New Zealand, England, and a number of other places. So definitely any words of encouragement that you would like to share with the global audience that will go back and watch this in team replay, as my friend Brian likes to call it sometimes.
I would love to say to open up the door to dreaming. Allow yourself to dream big and understand that the dream is not, it's not yours really. It's your purpose calling on you, like knocking at the door of your heart. So you got to open up and be willing to listen to it.
Yeah, definitely great thoughts, and I definitely agree with you on that. Amazing message that you're giving them and everything. Chucky, what are some of the things that you would like to share with our global community and all of that? And I do appreciate you being on. Like I said earlier, Dr. Raquel, you are always welcome to come back. Kara will tell you that I will bug you all the time, and we'll definitely have you pop back in whenever you feel like sharing your mission, sharing whatever else you've got going on in your world. But you are always welcome to come back anytime that you feel like it.
Thank you so much. And so great to meet you, Kara and Chucky. Or see you again, Kara.
Good to see you again.
Doctor, don't leave yet. I'll say, Dr. Lady, don't leave yet. But what I say, I like Walt Disney, how he said, if you could dream it, you can achieve it. You know? So I believe in dreaming it, but I just can't say it enough, is take action. You know, I mean, if you don't go for it, you won't get it. You know, you got to sometimes get up and go to the park, even if you don't want to. You have to make yourself do it. Like, I might not have this job, but I know that that's a part of the story. I have to communicate. I have to be there. I have to be responsible. I have to have the discipline. I have to, what I was going to say earlier is put on that costume and play that role. I mean, that's just a part of it, you know. Just like, okay, for instance, let's take it like a shower. You might want to take a shower, but you got to have the soap, you got to have the rag, you got to have the tub, you got to have the house or the apartment. So you got to put it all together and give it your best shot, but you got to go for it to get it. It's not going to just arrive on the plane. You know, like
Chuck, I so appreciate you adding that, because you're right. You know, it isn't just about like dreaming it up and getting all excited, and it's not all about the fluffy, you know, stuff, right? Is like you said, it's also taking the actions, you know. And I like to use the analogy of the GPS system, right? Like if you want to take a journey from here to, I'm in Portland, Oregon, right? And if I wanted to go to Miami driving, I plug in the directions in the GPS, but the GPS is only going to give me a little piece at a time. And at each time as I progress, it's going to show me a little bit more and a little bit more. But I ain't never going to get there unless I start driving. So you got to start driving and start taking the action, and then the rest will be revealed as you go.
Yeah, you definitely got to do that. And y'all are both so right. I know that too often we spend too much time doing what I call self-sabotage. And we've been talking about that on a number of shows here on this platform, where we sit there and, like you have mentioned, Chucky, a number of the folks that you have had the pleasure of meeting and talking to and all of that. And I can tell you that there are a number of times that folks have told me that they've had opportunities like that, but they did not even go and talk to the people because they were afraid that those people were going to reject them. Whereas you sat there and were like, you had a product, you had something that you wanted to share with them, and you didn't let that defeat you. You just went ahead and talked to folks, whether it was Prince, whether it was Michael Jackson, whether it was Brad Pitt, or whether it was a number of other folks that you have mentioned and everything. But I do know that too often, even when I go to festivals and stuff, folks will see folks like that, like an Angela Bassett or a Lou Gossett back when he was around and all of that stuff. And definitely they'll see these folks and they won't talk to them because they're afraid that they will reject them even before they've had the chance to even go there and have the conversation with them.
You know, real quick, one time I was on the elevator with Bernie Mac, and, you know, he had this iron lung because he was kind of sick. And I had my magazine in my hand, and I was like, hey, Bernie, check this out. And he looked at me like, you know, he was probably surprised I was speaking. I was like, he looked at the pictures. He goes, I ain't scared of you. And I was like, it ain't about being scared. It's about being aware. And he was like, oh. He goes, well, I'm from Chicago. I was like, I'm from Chicago too. He goes, hey, what's up, man? So, like, if you don't take a chance, you won't have a chance. Like Princess comes to those who take chances, you know? So I don't care. I mean, you know, I've had different celebrities have little attitudes, but I figured like this, you know, I'm a celebrity too. I mean, I am somebody. Say it out loud. I'm Chucky around. You got to go for it and get it. And yeah, Oprah, you know, Oprah got all of her talent, but she can't do a jump sidekick. So that put me in another angle that I could still go to her and still talk to her. Like Jamie Foxx, I found out he don't know martial arts, so I could teach him martial arts. You got to be creative. You got to be creative and
love it.
Definitely have to be creative in everything. So, Kara, you've heard these wonderful folks as we get ready to wrap up. We got about 5 minutes to go and everything. But what are some of your thoughts as what you've heard from our folks, including Chucky? I saw that Dr. Raquel had to leave and everything. But, Kara, what are some of your thoughts about these amazing conversations we've been having and all of that? So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah, just going off of what you said, Chucky, you know, you only fail if you don't do it. So falling on your face, it's just part of the process, you know, and whether it's experiencing life and going, like just talking to people and going for it, like going for experiences and going after your purpose and getting things accomplished and going for your dreams, like you do have to have that action. And it's not always going to look pretty, but if you do it enough, then it will look pretty. You know, Oprah wasn't always Oprah. Not the Oprah that we know it. She had to build herself up to that. She made it up in her mind that she was going to be Oprah one day, and she made it happen. And, you know, we don't have to be given permission to be this big version of ourselves. We just need to do it. And just taking that action and not being afraid to falling on your face a few times until you get to where you need to go. You just kind of do it.
Could not agree with you more and all of that. Chucky, you gave that great story, so I'm going to let you have the closing words and everything, but you gave that great story about your encounter with Michael Jackson. So any other celebrity encounter that you would like to share with our global audience? I'm sure that they would love to hear that story, because I thought it was great the way you told that story about seeing the glove and all of that. So any other celebrity encounter that you'd like to share with us to wrap everything up?
You know, first of all, of course, working with Jackie Chan was really cool. I happened to find out that he was going to be into town way, way, way back. And so I caught the bus down to the place where he was going to be at. And once he pulled up in the car, I noticed my friend was driving him. My friend Curtis was driving him. And I was like, wow, Curtis. And Curtis is like, Chucky. And then I was like, Jackie. And Jackie's like, Chucky. And I was like, oh, my God. and, you know, but that's the same thing. I took a chance. I took action. I didn't just sit there and listen to the radio. Once I found out it was happening, I made a way to get there. And another real quick one is Halle Berry. Like, I found out my brother was doing shows, and I found that Halle Berry was going to be at one of them. Her and her Eric Benet. She was going to Eric Benet. So I went to the concert, and I went all the way to the front. I got in the building before Halle did. That's just me. You know, I take action. So the next thing you know, they said nobody could be in here. Everybody got to leave. So I left. Next thing I seen Halle walking with Eric. And so she looked and she waved. I was like, damn, Halle Berry, right? So the next thing you know, she was on stage, and the girls in the crowd was booing her, I guess, because, you know, she was going with Eric. They were like, boo, boo.
Yeah, that's
they said, Eric, Eric, Eric. So I looked at Halle, and I knew that she was hurt. You know, I could just see it. I could feel it. So she was like walking along, and I was like, Halle, Halle, Halle. And she looked over, and she goes, oh, baby, thank you so much. Thank you. You know, and I was just so happy. So I really like Halle Berry, and I did like the John Wick movie. And, you know, I know different strokes for different folks, but like sometimes you have people that's scared that you're going to make it too big, you know, and they'll be like, oh, wait, I can't do it. Why could he do it? But I'm like, you know what? That's how come I'm glad I'm a filmmaker too. You know, I have my cameraman, I have my setups, I set the design for where we're going to film at, but you gotta be creative, and you just gotta be spontaneous, and you just really believe, and you gotta remember, if you don't go for it, you ain't gonna get it. You gotta take a chance. Like Prince said, success comes to those who take chances.
Very true. Appreciate y'all. Y'all were great. I definitely thought we had an amazing conversation about a number of things. Carol will tell you that I was earlier chatting and talking earlier and was nervous about whether we would even have guests or whether the show would be a success. And she was like, oh, Mark, you got it. It's going to be a great show. And once again, it was another great show and all of that. So appreciate all of y'all for being great guests. Appreciate my partner in crime for popping in on the show as well. So definitely glad to have all of y'all support. And like I told everybody else, Chucky, you are always welcome to come back. So one of these times we're going to have you come back and actually give us a martial arts demonstration. So we're going to have you sit up and do a demonstration at some point as well.
Yes.
Hey, you can go to my website, and my movie is on my website, MasterChuckyCurrie.com. And Kara, it's really been nice talking to you and seeing you, and you inspired me to even focus more on my nutrition, and that's great. And Marc Lee, thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish you guys all the best of success.
Bye.
Thank you. Appreciate you. So I'm going to bring up the theme little video and everything, and that will wrap it up. And then I'm going to move on over to Mullins Music and Memories, where I think I've got some other guests. So we're going to see if that one turns out as good as this first one did. But we're just going to roll with it and see how it plays.